Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. It's bright and early. Daily discipline, mind, body, and soul. This is how we get through every single day. Let me light up some incense. We'll get into our little study group. This is how we get down every Sunday. I do have some new subscribers to the channel, so welcome. This is how we roll on Sundays. I got some ambient music going, some desert music. Got some incense burning. Set my mood. Basically how it works today is I just go through my notes. I study every single day. It's part of the Mind, Body, and Soul program, a program that I live, that I coach. If you want coaching or mentoring, go to my website at skyazrael.com. You can also go find me on Facebook or Instagram. Nobody ever does, but I always put the offer out there. I had a guy mention on one of my videos the other day, there was a video about how to make friends, and he mentioned how he has no friends, and I told him, hey, I mention in every video to go find me on Facebook, and nobody ever does. Don't tell me you have no friends when you don't even friend me on Facebook. I'm putting the offer out there. Let's just jump into this. Start at the beginning, I guess. It's a good place to start. If you're ever going to start somewhere, you're wondering, where do I start? Start at the beginning. Here's a bit of advice. Have conversations with your doubts. I mean, we're constantly focused on our doubts, anxious about what we can't do and what we can't accomplish. Are we going to make it? I don't think I'm going to make it. I don't think I can do that. I may not be ready. Focus on all that stuff and figure it out. It's a good practice to have a clear understanding of what your obstacles are and what's blocking you. And you may not have the tools to conquer it today, but you can train. And you can say, I'll be back tomorrow. And maybe tomorrow you'll be able to move forward. Try to figure out what's at the root of your blockage, of what's blocking you. We block ourselves. We're our own worst enemies. Sure, sometimes your obstacles and the doubts that you have around them are very real. But what's at the root of it? You got to peel back that onion, peel back the layers. The thought behind the thought. What's the sponsoring thought of that fear? And very oftentimes it's something silly, it's something from our past, maybe our childhood or a trauma. And we can try to comfort ourselves and work past it. And just knowledge of ourselves, understanding ourselves is 90% of the battle. It's the same with motorcycle mechanics. People think mechanics is such a mystery. Once you understand how an engine works, and you understand a little bit about diagnostic technique, because there's a technique to diagnostics. Fixing it isn't hard. The diagnostics is the hard part. But allow yourself to peel back that onion and to find what's at the root of your fear, of your doubts, because that's what doubt is, right? It's fear. One way to move past fear is through faith. You can train, you can try to be smart, you can try to be prepared, but there's going to be that one wave that's too big for you. And no matter how long you've been surfing in the game, that's a big fucking wave. What do you do then? Faith. It's one of the reasons why I promote spirituality. Helps you move through the hard times, helps you get around your obstacles, having faith. Let's move on. It's about consciousness. We don't really know what consciousness is, but we do know when we're unconscious, right? When you're asleep, you're unconscious. If you were to punch me just right in that sweet spot in my jaw, and everybody has that little sweet spot, a jaw is a good place to knock somebody out, I would be unconscious on the floor. Your waking state is consciousness, supposedly. There does seem to be some people that are awake but don't really seem that conscious to me, but I would guess that maybe we could reduce our consciousness down to simply the awareness of our own senses as we interact with our environment. If you lose awareness of your own senses, the 5 senses that you have, how can you really say that you're conscious? Because the way that we prove that we're here is through taste, touch, sound, sight, smell, these types of things. And a dream can feel like consciousness. That's what gets weird, because when we're in our dream state, when we're asleep, aren't you technically unconscious? But your mind still works. Your mind can still recreate the world when it's unconscious, and you can still experience many of your senses. If you've had a really intense dream, you may not realize that it's fake until you wake up. But was it fake? Is there something else than consciousness? Is there another realm other than consciousness? We have to ask ourselves, what is unconsciousness? If consciousness is the awareness of our 5 senses and the awareness of reality around us in our waking state, what's unconscious when we're in that dream state and we don't even know it's a dream? And that's being unconscious. But what is that? How does that even work? How is our mind playing movies when we're asleep? Are you actually unconscious in a lucid dream? Because a lucid dream could be a form of consciousness, a kind of a half consciousness, where you're still asleep but yet you're still conscious. So what's happening there? Is it where your unconscious and your conscious mix when they're one? In lucid dreams, you can almost become God in your dream, but not in the waking world. Your body's still laying there. It's weird to philosophize on. Let's talk a little bit about God. It is Sunday. We have to talk about God. Now, you know I don't get on here to proselytize or to promote. I'm not trying to get you guys to go to church. I don't care what you believe. This is stuff that I study. Looks like we got a little rainstorm picking up. I like the rain, except for when it's a hurricane. We just had a hurricane. My fence is still in a tattered condition. There's different paths to God. Let's talk about 4 different paths to God. There's many. But let's only talk about 4. You can reach God through revelation. The knowledge of God, God's wisdom, God's love is revealed to you. Your revelation may happen in a moment when all of a sudden, through some experience of some kind, all of God's love and everything gets poured down upon you. You have this wonderful revelation of God. That can be a path to God, is through revelation. And that can be a continual path. It doesn't have to just be an introduction to God, I guess, because that's the way it almost sounds the way I'm talking about it. When I mean a path to God, I mean a continual path, a path that you follow for your entire life. So this is kind of how we view God, as the great revealer. But another path to God is through creation. These are theologies within Christianity. So we have the revelation theology, and then you have creation theology. God is the creator. He created everything, heaven and earth. He created the grass, the animals, the dirt, the clouds, everything. He's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the mightiest being out there, the computer nerd behind the simulation. Some people believe in simulation theory. then there's this idea, a theology of God being the perfect being. And you emulate that. You were created in the image of God. Man was created in the image of God, and God is the perfect being. And our job as humans, at least since the fall of Adam, according to the Old Testament, is to emulate God, to try to do our best to be like God. It's an impossible task. And then there's the theology, so that's the perfect being theology, that God is this perfect being. And that really speaks to some people. But then there's the imperfect being theology of God, which is quite opposite, but it's interesting that there's both a perfect being theology and then an imperfect being theology, but then they both worship the same God. The imperfect God idea is that God is not perfect. The Greeks kind of had this, the Romans, where their gods would sleep around, commit mistakes, do all kinds of fucked up shit, but they still worshiped them. Christianity came along and kind of posed a notion of a perfect God, but some people don't really buy that. They believe in an imperfect God. And I guess if you put it in the context of the Old Testament and the New Testament, you can see some imperfections. God can be vengeful. We're supposed to be forgiving. He doesn't seem so forgiving all the time. So there's these imperfections within our God that we worship, and that gives you a justification, I guess. The people that believe in the imperfect being theology gives you kind of a justification for not being perfect, but for having a good heart, for trying your best. And that as long as you have good intentions and you kind of try your best, even if you're this lovable oaf like Homer Simpson, you still make it. Let's move on. Here's a question that atheists seem to ponder. And it's one of the reasons I think why atheists become fallen angels. To me, that's what the atheist is the fallen angel, who is scorned by God, who feels rejected by God, and shakes his fist up at the heavens, saying, "You don't exist." In their mind, they kill God. Who needs it? Who needs God? And a lot of them take it a step further, where they not only reject God, reject religion and everything about it in anger, usually out of anger. What brought them there? Negativity. Why did they reject God? Not out of love. They rejected God out of anger, out of hatred, out of bitterness. Because they don't feel like God is good. You hear that? God is good. Atheists don't think so. How could God be good? So let's just philosophize on it for a second. Is God good? And if God wasn't good all the time, would that make it hard for you to worship him? Would you decide, well, this is all a bunch of bullshit, I'm not going to follow this crap? How am I supposed to be good if God's not good all the time? Well, some people believe that God created everything. Everything, not just some things. God created some things. It doesn't say that in the Bible. God created heaven and earth. There was nothing, and then there was something. God created everything. God created the devil. Who's the devil's father? Who's the devil's mother? Where did Lucifer come from? Satan, my good old buddy. Me and Lucifer go way back. God created the devil. The devil's a fallen angel, just like the rest of you. Are there entities, spirits, beings, any kind of form of life or angelic creation? Because God created all the angels. Is there anything outside of God's control and power? Are there more than one God? Are we still in ancient Greece where we believe in multiple gods that all have equal power? Or do we only believe in one God? And if there's one God, a monotheistic God that created the devil, it's part of the story. Then is God just only good? I think God encompasses both good and evil. If he's the almighty creator, like the story says, just keeping it in the context of the story, it would seem to follow logically that God is both good and evil. And you can't use the existence as evil as a reason to shake your fist and run away from faith. Jordan Peterson talks about this, that if you grew up in a world where you were just fed pleasure and hedonism and given this perfect life of utopia, you'd end up a weakling. You wouldn't have the skills to survive. You need to go through hard times. It makes you a man. You need to understand what pain is in order to know what pleasure is. You need to be able to see the worst, to see suffering, in order to learn the lessons you need to learn in life. You don't learn lessons through pleasure, you learn lessons through pain. So it's all part of the plan. It's all food for thought. Have a good day.